We're going to be starting now with our geometry section. So we're talking about shapes. We're going to start off nice and easy with circles. And today we're looking at area and circumference. So a couple of definitions before we get started on that. We have the diameter. So if we have a circle here and it has a center, diameter is a line that goes through the center but touches both sides of the circle, both edges. Okay, so that's a diameter. Radius is a line that goes from the center of the circle to only one edge of the circle. All right, so the diameter goes all the way across, radius only goes halfway. So if we were looking at it, an equation for the radius would be the diameter but divided by 2, or half of the radius, or half of the diameter, sorry. Okay, so for the actual equations today, the first thing we're going to find is circumference. Now, circumference is the distance around a circle. For other shapes like triangles or squares or rectangles, this is called the perimeter. But for circles, they call it the circumference. So the actual equation is C for circumference is 2 pi r. And I'll describe each of these. C obviously stands for circumference. 2 is just a number. Now pi, that's a Greek letter, and that's just a number on our calculator. Okay, so maybe take a second, locate the pi symbol on your calculator. So pi, and we'll talk about that when we get to our calculator work. Now r stands for radius. Okay, so make a note of that. That's our equation for circumference. Next thing is going to be area. Area is the space inside a circle. Okay, so the shaded area inside the circle. A for area is pi. So again, there's our pi symbol. Pi only shows up in circles. R squared. All right, so A for area. That symbol is pi. And again, R is the radius. But this time we have to notice that it's going to be the radius but squared. And one little note you'll want to make nearby. When we're talking about area, the answers are squared. Okay? So like the units will be squared. So if we're talking about feet, to be feet squared, or inches squared, miles squared, just like if you're talking about maybe the square footage of your house, 2,000 square feet, or you're trying to measure how much dirt to put in the backyard. Okay, they're measured in square feet or square meters. All right, so area is squared. So let's jump right into an example here. So our first example, find the circumference. So they're going to give us a circle here. Has a center, and they give us some information on here. That line is 5 meters. Now they're asking us to find circumference, so that's the measurement all the way around. How far is it around this circle? Circumference, remember, is the C equation, and let's look what that is. So there's area. Here, circumference, 2 pi r. So I'm going to write that down here, 2 pi r. And let's plug in everything we need. Now 2 is just a number, pi is a number on the calculator, r is what we need in order to find out c. And r stands for radius, and let's look at the picture. They do give us the radius. Remember, radius goes from the middle to the outside of the circle. So this distance here is the radius, so the radius is 5. So let's go ahead and plug that in. So the circumference that I'm trying to find is 2 times pi, and then the radius is 5. All right, so it's all being multiplied together. Off the top of my head, I do know what 2 times 5 is. That's a 10. Still have pi, but we can take this to the calculator now. 10 times pi, so make sure you know where your pi button is. And 10 times pi gives me 31.4. Now that is the right number answer, but we still have units because we need them to make sense. So all the way around this circle is 31.4 meters. If you don't have meters, then your answer doesn't make any sense. I can't just say it's 31.4 around. That number needs to make sense to us. All right, let's try another one. So for example, let's find the area this time. And now, even without looking at the circle, we're trying to find area. So we can maybe just write the area equation down. I know it starts with A equals, and area is this one, so pi r squared, because I know I need to use it eventually, so might as well write it down. For the actual problem, they'll give us, again, a circle with a center, and they mark off that this distance here is 10.2 inches. If I'm looking at the equation, I need the letter r, and r is radius. Do they give us the radius this time? Yes, from the middle to the outside, that is the radius. So the area is pi 10.2 instead of r, but the whole thing of 10.2 needs to be squared. Now I need to solve this. Order of operations, PEMDAS. Parentheses, anything happening inside? No. Exponent, yes. So on your calculator, go ahead, take 10.2 and square it, and you end up with 104.04. And now go ahead and multiply that value by pi, and you get an ending value of 326.9, but we need units. I've got inches here, but remember I'm trying to find the area inside this circle, so I'll go ahead and highlight this. I need what's inside the circle. So we do use inches, but the area, or the units for area, remember, need to be squared. So it's 326.9 inches squared inside that circle. Okay, a couple more. For example, let's go ahead and find circumference, and I'll just write circumference. Circle, center. We'll label that as 50 feet. Okay, so hopefully we're remembering circumference now. So circumference is 2 pi r. 2 is good, pi is good, radius. All right, so I look over here, 50. Unfortunately, that's not the radius this time, because remember, radius goes from the middle to the outside. This one goes from side to side of the circle. This here is the diameter. Now we don't plug the diameter into the equation, we still need radius. But remember, diameter and radius are related. Okay? All you have to do, if they give you the diameter, is divide it by 2. Remember, the radius is the diameter divided by 2, or 50 divided by 2, so the radius is half of that, or 25 feet. Now 25 is the number that we want to plug in. So let's go ahead and do that. So circumference is 2 pi, and then the radius, 25. So you can either do the 2 and the 25 and then the pi, or any order, because it's all being multiplied. In the end, when you multiply 2 pi and 25 together, you get 157.1, and the units are going to be feet. Not squared, because it's not an area. It's 157.1 feet around that circle. And one last example. Let's go ahead and find the area. Circle. "12 centimeters. So just looking at this, 12. That's not the radius. We always want the radius for these things. That's the diameter. So the diameter is 12, meaning that the radius, if you cut it in half, should just be 6. Oops. 6 centimeters. So that's the one I want to plug in. And my area equation is pi r squared. So pi, and instead of r, I'm plugging in 6, but still need to square it. So that's a pi times a 36, because 6 squared is 36. And then pi times 36, the area comes out to 113.1 centimeters, but on area, always has to be squared. All right, so we found out the inside area of this whole thing, a little bit more than 113 centimeters squared.